In this interview, I talked to Christy, and she's making about $3,000 per month now. I believe her site is a little over 18 months old. She's been on the show several times. The first time I talked to her was back in January or so of 2019, and you should check out that interview if you want to see the progression. Like I said, she's making about $3,000 per month right now, and this is during the pandemic. There's been Amazon commission rate change. So be sure you stick around for the full interview here. We dig into a lot of different areas, including content, publishing in general, growing a team, and a blog acquisition. So something new that she's working on as well. I'm not going to ramble on too much here, but my name's Doug Cunnington. And if you're brand new to the channel, we talk about affiliate marketing, SEO, and we cover a lot of success stories. So if you dig it, please subscribe. Let's get to the interview now. Hey, what's going on? It's Doug Cunnington here, and I'm with my friend Christy. How are you doing today?
Hey Doug, good to see you.
Yeah, it's been a while since we had you on, and I think we were texting, and you were like, hey, things are still looking up even after quarantine and COVID, and there was a Google algorithm change, and Amazon changed their commission rates, but you have record earnings. So is that right? It's record earnings?
True. Yep. Yeah, things have actually been looking up in this rather strange amount of time. So basically, the site, I pulled some numbers this morning, and the site in 2020, in the first 6 months, has already made more than it made in all of 2019, which is pretty cool. And when the Amazon cut happened in, I think, April, was it?
Mm-hmm.
Then I assumed that I would also see a drop. And I actually didn't see any. I saw an uptick in Amazon earnings consistently and still do. So this past month was the first time that I've hit 3,000 in a month, which is exciting.
Awesome. Congratulations.
Hey.
And can you give us some history on the site? When did you start it? How many posts are there now? And maybe the daily traffic, just so people have a scope of what you're working with there.
The site started in October of 2018, technically, but I really didn't start putting content out until the very beginning of 2019. And the site currently has about 260 posts, and probably 200 of those I made last year. So I definitely did a big content sprint early on, trying to get that kind of early momentum going. And the last 60 or so I've done this year. So overall, the site's made between 1,000 and 3,000 for the last probably 9 months, which is really good. So it's got, over 250 posts. I plan on adding another 50 really soon, which we can talk about in a little bit. And, for its whole lifetime, it's made about 27,000.
27,000. Nice. So that definitely paid for the cost of the
You
course.
did pay for the course, yeah. I felt pretty good about being able to get an ROI on that.
All right, nice. And I didn't mention it before, but you've been on the channel, on the podcast a few times. So if people want to hear the history, and like, I think I interviewed you when you first hit $100, and then that was actually pretty quick overall, so people could sort of track along and hear the journey. So, and how has this sort of changed your life? That is enough money that I suspect, most people that can shift their perspective on things.
Yeah, what I like about it is that for a full-time job, I run a services business of my own. And the main thing that anyone will tell you about services is it's super hard to scale. And unless you're really like in it, doing it, you're not going to be earning really, which has been true. It's been a good business for me, but it's also something where I'm like, in 20 years, am I going to want to be doing the services thing still? Maybe not. So the niche site was something for me where it's more planning for the future and seeing if I can build something on the side that slowly changes the balance of where my revenue comes from. So I have a lot of earnings goals that are related to what I currently make for my other business to say, hey, can I kind of stair step this to take over more of my monthly revenue? So that's where it's been cool for me to see that it really can progressively earn more, right? The first month, I think I made like $70 or something, maybe. So at that point, you're like, I don't know if this is even a thing. This is not life changing money. But by the time you get to, 25, 30,000, and hopefully by the end of this year, quite a bit more, that's real money. I mean, it's paying to replace my laptop that's crapping out this month. So that's great. But yeah, for me, it's more of a long term goal. Like it's not a get rich quick thing, but it's something that I enjoy doing. And it's something that I can do that builds and keeps working even when I'm not doing anything to it. So that's great.
Yeah, congrats again. That's definitely a significant chunk of money. So, and I can't remember, did you mention how much traffic you're getting currently right now?
Okay, so traffic wise, I did look back this morning just to see kind of February before things went a little cuckoo versus now. And in February, I had about 1,200 a day visitors, and currently I have about 1,700 to 2,000 a day. So it's been really steady growth. There was a blip in the middle about a month ago where one of my posts took off, and that's kind of settled back out too. But for the most part, about 2,000 a day is where I'm at now.
Where's all that traffic coming from? Is it a spread between a few different sources?
So initially, and I had written about this for you actually, doing Pinterest was a place that I got some initial traffic before the SEO could pick up, back last year. Currently, the balance of that has flipped and it's probably about 85% organic search, which is great, and about 8% from social, which is really just Pinterest, since that also functions as a search engine. So that's where I spend my social capital, as it were.
Do you have like a sense if that Pinterest traffic converts well, either for ad revenue or for affiliate sales?
So historically, I wouldn't say it's a power driver for affiliate sales, but all eyeballs earn about the same amount on the ad side. So since I put in ads back, oh gosh, when did I do that? Hold on. September. So September last year, I put in ads for Mediavine, whom I love. Little shout out to Mediavine. So since I put that in, really any eyeball that gets to the site still has potential to earn, which I like. So everything from Pinterest, I would count on more for ad revenue than for affiliates, which is
Okay.
fine.
And what's the spread from the affiliate revenue to the ad revenue?
Sure. I think generally month to month, it's about 2/3 Amazon affiliate and other affiliates. So I have a couple littler programs, and then about a third from ads.
Okay. And we'll go ahead and point out, we were chatting beforehand. Some people are probably thinking, hey, traffic went up and you know, the traffic is making up the difference for the Amazon commission rate change. And Christy, do you generally agree with that? Is that what's happening here?
You can't be sure. I would say that that is probably part of it, but I don't think it's all of it. The niche that I picked, the products that I'm promoting are across a lot of different categories, which really helps me out, I think, with things like rate cuts. So it's not that I'm selling, car batteries. That's it. Sites about car batteries. That's it. It's a site where it has a lot of different products, educational tools, apparel. Like there's a lot that can be into the equation of what people are going to be buying. So for me, that's just another way to diversify is the kinds of products that we're promoting.
Okay. And then are you working with any other affiliate programs aside from Amazon?
So I do have two others that sell related types of products, but they're much smaller. So I might make $180 off of that versus, 1400 from Amazon. So
Okay.
still the conversion rate is a lot higher for Amazon
Sure.
than pretty much anything else, even if you get longer cookies with another program. So
Yep. And that's the hard part with it
yeah,
is you may get, 4 times the commission rate and a 60-day cookie, but if people are only buying like one thing there, it's really hard to make up the difference. So at least at this point in time, the way the associate program is structured. So
agreed.
right. You have a 260 posts, you said, and I know that you like to write. You're a pretty good writer. And you also worked with some writers. So do you have any like tips or guidance for people that are thinking, wow, I'm just launching and I only have, 10, 15 articles? Like, how can I even compete with these big sites?
Sure. It has been interesting to see that you can rank above a lot of bigger sites. So that was a good lesson for me. Not on every topic, and you're not gonna, focus on the topics that I know I can't rank for, right? There are sites out there that are very established and there is no chance. But for some of the smaller, longer tail keywords, I am actually ranking above the bigger sites, which is cool. So when I go to hire writers, it's a lot more for me about matching the right writer with a good topic. So I don't just go and assign a bunch of topics to writers from Upwork. I go through a process where I find people that I really like. I do a test post with them just to make sure that I like their style. I'm not spending more time cleaning it up than I am paying for them to do it. But I also want them to be enjoying it. So I always give writers 3 to 5 different topics and have them pick what they want to be writing about. So I just find that I get better content that way. I find a group of writers that I can go back to time and time again that do a good job, and I treat them like humans because I am a writer and I value what they do. So
All right. And I think, yeah, that's a good tip because I'm actually hiring a few writers right now and I did not do what you are saying. And I'm literally just assigning it. I mean, I'm testing out the writers as well.
99% of people, it's just as a writer, I like to go a little bit further and be like, what do you like writing about?
And I'm trying a little bit, but early on when you first hire them, it's like you don't know like what
For
they're
sure.
what they're doing yet. That's a great tip. And how much of the content did you personally write? Do you remember?
I would say over 50% was me. I try to just kind of chip away at my list as things come up. I do a couple of content sprints in a year. So those are the times when I might get 50 posts using Upwork writers, and I make it a defined period of time and I try to get everyone's stuff in within, maybe it's 2 months. And that just makes it more efficient for me than dribbling out content throughout the year. So typically, if I'm hiring things, it's a couple times per year in a focused period of time versus the content that I write. I just do that all year round when I have time.
Okay. And when you're working with writers and you're doing one of those sprints or even the ongoing, do you have your writers work in WordPress or are you the person in WordPress drafting everything?
I am currently the person in WordPress because I'm a little bit type A, a lot, and it makes me nervous to have other people in there. I know it's fine and you can do your user roles and all of that. But for me, I also spend so much time in the content that it wouldn't really save me anything not doing that piece myself. So typically, I have them send me a Google Doc and I find my own photos and I do all of that while I'm putting it into WordPress. And I like WordPress, it's fun. So
Sure.
I don't mind doing that part. It is a lot. I do have one gal now that helps me with Pinterest, and I've just given her basically a step by step guide for drafting things in WordPress. So I think the next time that I do a sprint, I will have her do that piece, and then I'll just go in and focus on editing.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I tend to do the latter. And once I got someone to draft in WordPress, it like made everything much faster for me
Oh
because
yeah,
I would really slow the whole process down.
big
And
time suck for sure.
yeah, so I saved a lot of time on it. But I mean, I understand, like, especially if you're in there all the time and you enjoy it and you're doing the images, and
Right.
that's fine. And speaking of images, and we're sticking in the content area here, where do you get your images? Do you have any like favorite places?
So I typically get them from Pixabay and Pexels. Not sure if I'm saying that right. To just royalty-free sites. In the past, like early on, I would just do, Google image searches for, available for reuse, whatever. But now that makes me a little nervous just to try to keep track of all that stuff. So I try to just stick with a couple of sites. One thing that I do want to do, I don't know if you want to talk about this now, would be just looking at all the photos across my site and seeing if I can make them more diverse,
Mm,
right? So all the people in my niche are using kind of the same photo sites because that's just, you have to do it, right? I don't have enough photos of my own to handle 300 posts a
mhm.
year. So one thing that I do want to do in this next probably 6 9 months is try to build my own photo library by doing some outreach to key people in my niche and asking them to submit photos that they'll allow us to use, and just making sure that that's a diverse set, that we're getting a better representation of everyone in our industry than I can get off of a regular stock site. So that's going to take a lot more time than just searching for the same old stuff. But I feel like it's something that we should be doing. And I want to be doing that outreach anyway. So it seems like two birds, one stone for me.
Yeah, and I never thought of that, but you mentioned, reaching out to people on Instagram too, right? It's literally a picture platform.
Yep.
People are taking pictures and probably would
Better
love to have
picture.
the recognition. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's my
So,
plan for the next, 6 9 months. I would love to build up my own library of 200, 300 photos across, different topics that I could be using. It won't, I can't use it for everything, but I could use it for a lot and make sure that the site showcases the diversity in our industry at least. So
right.
something I'd like to
And would you pay the people, or what's your idea to get this going?
So my initial thought is when I do outreach, I'll say, that this is a place for everyone's voices. Here's our guest posting process, which we have outlined on the site. So that's kind of ready to go. But then what I think I might do with the photos is to encourage people to submit photos with, written approval to use them. And then I might be able to make a donation to a diverse organization within our industry for every photo that we receive. So I might be able to give back in that way. So it's not directly, paying someone $1 for a photo isn't necessarily meaningful, but if I can pay several $100s, several $1,000s to a nonprofit that's doing good work, then everybody wins again. So
Do you have any idea, like any sort of agreement that you would have to have in place, like from a legal standpoint? Like, does it get complicated, or can it be as simple as like a model release
I
situation?
think it would be as simple as that. I think I would do some Googling for existing templates of like a photo waiver
Mhm.
and then just keep those all on file basically, and make sure that
Yeah.
everyone gets credit, right? So I would always credit back, link to their Instagram, but it's something where I think people who spend a lot of time taking good photos want them out there. And especially now, there should be more faces, more voices. And I want my site to be one of those places where people feel at home. So
Cool. Yeah, and I haven't heard of any like outreach to Instagram. I mean, maybe people are doing it, but it totally makes sense. And it could be like any photographer, any sort of influencer. I mean, really, the pictures that we can get off our phones are
are
pretty
beautiful.
amazing. Yeah,
Exactly.
pretty awesome. So another area that is sort of actually before we get to the blog acquisition, so I think that this is a really cool topic, but link building. So did you spend much time on link building? Like I know we've talked about outreach in the past, but yeah, where are you at in that sort of process?
So initially, I did not. Initially, it was just content, content, SEO research, and content. I'm not sad about that. I think that was probably a good place for that first 6 months of my site. Then, probably the last half of last year, when I was talking with you, you were encouraging me to do more of that outreach, link building. And so that has definitely ticked up. I would say it's a steady uptick in links. I don't have a number for you, but it's been steady. And I do outsource a little bit of that to the gal who does my Pinterest. So guest posting and things like that. I have her follow up. We also bought a list of basically influencers within our industry, just contact info. Nothing that I'm going to, I'm not going to load these people into our email tool or anything like that. But for outreach, it saves me a step of going onto every website and finding contact information. So we now have about 300 influencers that we can do targeted outreach to. So that's exciting. So that'll be probably in the next 6-9 months. And we'll just be offering guest post opportunities and things like that.
Okay. And where did you get the list? I'm sure some people are like, "Whoa, you bought a
Yeah.
contact list?"
Yeah, it's not shady. Buying lists I don't love, but this one is a list that I'm actually on. So we bought it through FeedSpot. That's part of their platform and what they do. You could go line by line on their site and find them yourself. I'm too lazy to do that.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think it was $150, you know. So maybe I'll get that money back out of it. Maybe not. I don't really care. What I want is the, ability to develop relationships with people that are doing good work. So it's worth it for me.
Yeah, and I mean, at that price, because I had no clue how much it would cost. I think I've seen that site, but I mean, it seems like a bargain. You potentially could hire someone to do like the manual
Right.
checking, but I mean, that site, that platform is there for that specifically, right?
Exactly. And I assume they do it for lots of different industries too. I haven't obviously looked for that, but I'm sure for many different niches, they have lists of influencers.
Yep, that totally makes sense. So let's move to, before we move on,
Mhm.
so you don't know how many links or guest posts you've done. Do you have is it like less than 30 guest posts, would you say?
I'd say less than 30. Hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
And then I suspect you have some natural links that have shown up over time, correct?
True. And when we get guest posts for our site, we also ask people to add a link from theirs. So that's the primary way that I do that is guest posts that come into me. I then ask those people to link to their own post from their site.
Do you have a pretty good success rate with that? Are people pretty open to it?
Yeah, we just say it's required.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Awesome. Well, with that said, how many guest posts have you published from contributors?
sure. Probably upwards of 40.
Okay. All right. So you
Yep.
probably have, I would just ballparking, you at least have over 50
Yep.
backlinks to your site, and it's across the site and all over the place. Okay, cool. And then you have the naturally occurring ones, which could be
Correct.
another. I mean, the site's been around long enough and you're ranking for some obscure long tail keywords. So my hunch is you probably got a bunch.
Yeah. The nice part about the guest posts linking back to us is those are highly relevant sites, right? So those are related to our topics, not just a link from some random who knows where they found us. So I'm hopeful that that is a bit better for Google to see that sites related to us are linking back to us.
And what do you have on your Write for Us page? Any tips for people on that?
So we do have a Write for Us page. I tell people that if they're making an inquiry about it, I would like basically a summary of their background. I would like a few topics ideas, but I also say that we will then pick the final topic, provide an outline. So I provide an outline for every guest post that we do, which is not normal, but that lets me make sure that all the SEO words I want are there. So I do like the subheaders. I might include a list of FAQs. That takes a lot more time, but that also makes sure that the guest post I'm getting back is still valuable from an SEO side and not just from a educational side, which is nice. But if you can have both, why not have both? So that's what I do for guest posts. And then on that page, I do say, we request a link back to your published blog when we're done. So we don't hide that. It's right up front. No one has minded ever.
Okay.
So keep doing it.
Cool. And then do you specify where they link from on their site, or do you care?
So yeah, what you and I had talked about earlier was it's not the best to have just two links going back and forth to the same content, right? So when I do a guest post, I'm linking back to their homepage, say, or a tool that they offer. When they give us a link, we ask them to write a dedicated, what I call a teaser post, which is just a short blurb about what it's about. We're featured on this site, and then a link to their specific article. So we don't have cross beams to the same piece of content on each other's site. It's us linking to their homepage and them linking out from somewhere else to their individual post.
Perfect. Okay. And that seems to work pretty well. That makes sense. All right. So let's move to the blog acquisition. Just can you break down what's been going on with that?
Sure. So one day out of the blue, I wrote you and basically said, do people do this? Is this something that people do? They buy small blogs or no? And you said, sure, that'd be a great idea. So what basically happened is I have a friend that I met through this project, of course, who had a small blog, but she wasn't really keeping it up anymore. It wasn't her priority project. She had other things that she was starting. And so there was basically a blog sitting out there with about 50 posts that she wasn't adding to. And it was like a guilt complex for her, which I understand, of, man, I should be keeping this current, right? I should be putting more content out there. But it wasn't something that she was enjoying doing anymore. So there was just all this content sitting out there and her over here feeling guilty, which seems silly. So it occurred to me, maybe I could just buy her small blog. She stops feeling guilty about keeping it up. She stops paying for hosting. She stops paying for anything about it. And I could take those 50 blog posts that are not SEO optimized yet. They weren't sitting on a site with high quality ads. And I could probably improve that content and basically have 50 pieces of new content for my site overnight, right? It takes time to move the content and do all of that, but essentially I'm not waiting for writers to write posts. And I could do it all for less money than it would take me to hire someone to write 50 posts. So that seemed like a pretty great experiment. And now I'm in the midst of that. So we worked out a price. I basically asked her for traffic numbers, where her traffic comes from. Her site was primarily social traffic, which is different than my profile. Mine is mostly SEO. I bought all of her social channels with it. I bought her email list with it, which about doubled the size of mine, which is not a lot. It's like 300 people, but it's still more than I had, and that's great. And it's very relevant people. So the people who liked her site will also like what we are doing. So I'm now in the process of moving that content over for phase one and just getting it out there. And then phase two will be going back to every post and basically looking for the KGR terms that I could have within that post, updating titles, adding FAQs, making content longer and better. But really it was just skipping some steps on having content that was ready to go. So I'm kind of excited about that. Now I want to acquire everything.
Do you have any idea how long it'll take to like migrate the content over? Do you have a scope of that yet?
So far, we migrated maybe a fifth of it, and that's in the past 5 days. So I don't think it'll take too long, a couple of weeks. Working with a developer on the back end stuff to get things rerouted and figure that out. I've never done that before, so that stuff's new. But I think once I do it and I learn what the process should be, it wouldn't be hard to do it again. So in the back of my mind, that feed spot list that we bought of 300 blogs, part of me wants to go back and see, are there some blogs that people aren't keeping up anymore that still have good content that I could just offer to buy? So
Yeah. And it's interesting. Like, when you emailed me, I was like, oh, that is great. I mean, I've purchased some smaller
sure.
sites, and I think that fits, because I have the skills to like grow a site, but I've never like went out looking like, hey, I'm going to acquire a site. And, like you said, all of a sudden you'll get like an influx of 50 articles in a super short time, cheaper than if you wrote it or, you know, um, originally hired a team and all that. So we'll have to check back in to see how that ended up working out. Um, and it could be, gosh, I have no idea, but I mean, you're
I have no idea.
basically adding, let's see, you're adding 20% more
Uh-huh.
content like off the bat.
Right.
Now, how much traffic was her site getting?
Very little, like maybe I want to say 3,000 visitors a month, maybe.
Okay.
It had no SEO on it and it had very little ads, like one strip of Google AdSense on the bottom of a post, like no in content ads, none of that. So for me, part of why it was appealing was knowing that I don't need to make affiliate income off of it. I can also make ad income off of just, the 65,000 words that I bought, basically. And so I still have some confidence that I can make back what I spent. And even if I don't make it completely back, that's fine. I didn't go out and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on a site. I spent, less than $2,000 to buy something that maybe could do some good. And it was great for her. And now we're both happy. So it was
Awesome. Pretty cool. Yeah. And I mean, if you just look at the raw numbers, assuming that the social traffic keeps coming, you're adding, a little more traffic to your site, a significant amount, not a
yeah,
huge, crazy amount, but it's, what did you say, 3,000
about
visitors
3,000
per?
a month.
Okay. Yeah. So it's a little, I mean, you'd potentially notice that if you got
Sure. Well, and I
3,000 more
think
per month.
once those articles are improved from an SEO side, they have a lot more potential. The other thing that we ended up doing, which was, I'll have to give credit to him, my dad's idea. She had basically an email magnet, a list magnet of a 5-day course that was an email course. I already have a list magnet and I wasn't really looking to change that, but there were 5 days of email content sitting out there that each had a video in them. And technically, I bought that too with the site. So basically, we took each of those videos and transcribed them into copy to give us essentially 5 new articles. So we
Oh,
took our email list magnet and turned them into 5 brand new articles that weren't out there before. So that was
oh,
kind
that's
of
pretty
interesting.
cool. And yeah, you highlighted something there. So you have, is it free labor from your father? Or do you pay him?
Yes, my retired father. So he reads all the posts that go out. So he's my editor, which is great. And yeah, we have kind of a complementary skill set. So that's worked out nicely.
That's pretty fun. Yeah. So you pay him hourly, or is
I
he a
pay
part
him
owner?
in pastries and iced tea. And so far, we've both found that to be a win. So yeah, it's
It's
really
funny.
fun though. It's the kind of project that we can just work on together, and it's something we do in our spare time. And he's retired, and I own my own business, so I work when I want. And yeah, I love it. There's really nothing about the site that I don't love. So
Very cool.
pretty cool.
One other thing to hit on is just Google algorithm updates, and they they seem to be coming more frequently. There's usually at least a couple or three per year. How have you fared over the past couple years?
So this is the kind of thing that I would naturally get really anxious about and research and just go down the rabbit holes. And you had told me early on, just don't worry about it. And so I don't worry about it. I don't research them when they come out. I don't look to see what happened. I don't bother. So for me, it's like I'm going to keep doing what I think of as a best practice, and Google will do what it is doing, and I'm not going to try to play the system. So, yeah, the answer is I don't really look and I don't really care.
Well, I was going to say, it sounds like your traffic has generally been going up the whole time, right?
Yep.
So you've been unimpacted because what happens sometimes is basically I hear from people that do zero link building at all. And oftentimes, they're like, everything was fine. I haven't done anything. I don't even have any links to my site. And then they'll drop for whatever reason. And it could be, your content is so well focused, you're interested, passionate about the niche in general. And then you've taken a lot of attention and care to make sure the content's good. So it may be like, because the content's so good and you have links, I mean, I think it's helpful. They're super relevant. So maybe all that together is helping out. I don't know.
I mean, I think the Google algorithms, the point of the changes is to try to direct people to better content that is closer to what they're searching for. So, from my perspective, as long as I am making good content and helping Google find it, I can't imagine why a algorithm change would be bad for me. I guess in my mind, I just think maybe that will help more people find it, I guess.
Yeah. Well, and one of my friends, Rob Atkinson, I
Uh-huh.
interviewed him recently. At, at the time that we're recording this, it hasn't gone live yet, but by the time people listen and or watch this, it will. So one interesting thing, Rob has a huge site. It's like a
Sure.
7-figure per year site. Insane. Just a niche site, but he has been hit by the algorithm changes. He has excellent content, great links, like it's
Sure.
a robust, like very great website. And what he observed was sometimes, right, they'll drop not off page one, but they'll drop from like number one to number five.
Sure.
And a lot of times it'll just be a shuffling on page one that greatly impacts the traffic, but the quality of the results on the first page is basically the same.
Right.
He was sort of speculating like Google just shuffles it around every now and then for certain niches, but
And that may be
who
too. I think
knows?
sometimes they just do testing to see, obviously what people are clicking on. So maybe by doing some shuffling on the first page, they're just confirming, do people actually really want that article, or are they just clicking on what's first? I could see that being the case. For me, most of my stuff is not ranking number one. A decent amount of it is on page one. But again, I'm not even tracking individual keywords. I'm just moving forward. So that's the best advice I could give is it's so easy to get bogged down in the data. And a lot of times, going in a couple times a year and looking at the data, seeing what's happening with your content is good. But every day is just going to really stop you from making more content.
Yeah. And I think, yeah, it's surprising because some people just spend all the time in the data. And then, I mean, I think getting caught up in the algorithm updates, like obviously if you notice your traffic dropped a lot,
For
like
sure.
you check around, but unfortunately, like nowadays, usually there's nothing you could do. You just have to wait for another, I mean, especially if you're doing the right stuff
Right.
already. Sometimes, people are publishing crappy content or something like that, but yeah, it's pretty nuts out there. So let's see. One other area that I think we needed to get to was, I don't see where I need to go. Is there anything else that you could think of?
Yeah, I could share just a few things that we're thinking about doing in the next, I would call it maybe 6 months.
Sure.
So, an exercise that I'm going through this week actually is what I call a tree exercise. We did it back in my corporate life, where you essentially pick out leaves, branches, trunks, and roots. I don't know if you've done this, where it's basically a delegation tree. So, leaves are things that I don't even want to know they're happening. I just want them to happen. I don't want anyone to talk to me about it. Just make it happen. Don't tell me about it. Branches are, you know what, give me a heads up, but I still really don't need to know much about it. I just want to know that it's happening. Trunks are, you know what, I want to be involved in this process. I want to make sure I'm approving the things that are going out, but I'm not physically doing it. And then roots are like, these are my babies. These are the things that I am focused on doing. I want to own the process for them. So I'm going through that exercise, which I've done for work a bunch of times. I'm now doing it for my niche site to see. I have one gal who does my Pinterest and some of my outreach that I really do trust. And then so I'm going through my list basically and seeing, what do I still want to be doing myself? What do I maybe want to delegate so that I can spend more time on those kind of root activities? So things like putting posts into WordPress, I'm going to be giving up because there are maybe better places for my time. And that is something that someone else is capable of doing. So that's an exercise I'm going through now so that I can spend some more time on some bigger projects that I want to do, like creating basically a knowledge directory of other courses in my niche. So instead of putting all my time right now into creating my own course, when I don't have a huge email audience to sell it to anyway, that's not a priority. So what I do want to do is highlight other people who already have really good educational content and make a directory from that, work on our email list growth, work on that diversity project we talked about, and then just kind of building probably another content sprint into the calendar in the next maybe quarter to get that done. So I want to be sure that I'm doing that every year, but that takes a lot of time on my root section, right? Doing all the keyword research, coordinating the writers, and doing all of that. So that's kind of where we're headed for the next 6 months. Nothing earth-shatteringly different than what we've been doing, but just more of what's working.
Very cool. And you mentioned like a course maybe in the future, something like that. So is that just kind of out there, like no specific plans?
It is. The reason being, I do like the diversification of revenue, right? I put in ads early on in my site. I'm not sad I did that. Amazon plus a couple other programs. I like the diversification, just it's less risk, obviously. Courses are something that I would build out for the future, but it's not something where I want to dump $10,000 to make a massive course without an audience at this point, right? So I have a steady stream of web traffic, but I don't have a community that is built up over years and that kind of level of trust that you need to sell a big course. So I don't feel a need to do that, but I might just start dabbling in smaller mini courses and get some new content out there that I'm not seeing other places. And meanwhile, be promoting people who do have good content already.
And that makes sense. I mean, I know a lot of it's the best way to start, I think, is with affiliate marketing, other
Sure.
products, whether it's physical or the digital products, because then you'll know what's selling.
Right.
You don't have to spend all the time and effort and capital in developing the product, and then you can still earn from it, but then there's less skin in the game, at least early on.
Agreed.
Very
So
cool.
content is kind of the biggest thing that I know works. So if I'm going to be investing a lot of, money at a particular time in the site, that's the first place that I'm going to put it.
Cool. All right. Well, any tips, and this is sort of the the last little bit. So any tips for people that are like, maybe they haven't started their site yet, or maybe they're just sort of
Sure.
launching and they're not earning like $100 per month yet,
Sure.
something like that.
The thing I would say that's kept me going the most is picking a niche that I really do like. So if the content wasn't something that I cared about, if I picked a certain product on Amazon, vacuum cleaner bags, I'm not going to still be doing it a year and a half
Okay.
later. So for me, this is something that I want to enjoy doing. I don't just want money from it, right? I want the whole experience of doing it. I like learning about it. So the biggest piece I think for me is pick something that you actually care about. Yes, it has to be viable, right? If your space is super crowded and you're never going to break through in it, that's probably setting yourself up for failure. But if you can go about it in a new way or niche down a little bit into something that you really care about and enjoy doing, I mean, I literally never get tired of working on the site. It's fun. And if it made me half as much, I'd still be doing it. So,
Yep. And just a quick note, when we were talking early on back in probably November of 2018, when you were trying to figure out like exactly what to pick for your niche, I was like, I don't know anything about it.
right,
It sounds maybe too obscure. I'm not
right.
sure. I don't know if you're gonna be able to make it work, but I assume, that there's enough products out there and there's enough people interested. And I was like, I think it's gonna be okay if you go for it. And you were like, all right, I'll do it.
Exactly. So I went through all the exercises of looking at different options. I just didn't want to do them. I just wanted to do this one. So I was like, I'm going to make it work. It's going to be great. We're going to find things that other people are not doing. There's tons of room on the internet. Not every topic is covered, even when it feels like every topic is covered. It's not, or it's not covered well. So, really, like, there's still room, even in big categories that are pretty popular. There's still room to do it better or do it, in a more specific way. And that just makes you want to keep working on it. I think
Mhm.
that's pretty important.
And one other observation, which I haven't thought about this before, but it's a niche like many of them out there that has been around for a long time. It will probably be around in the future, and there's no, I guess, like cyclical nature to it
Not
where,
sad, it's not seasonal. Yeah, exactly.
and I think, personally, I'm thinking about like beer and beer brewing, because that's another
Sure.
one where, you know, beer brewing's been around for a while and people drink alcohol
Right.
when there's a pandemic or when there's not a
Mhm.
pandemic. So
Yeah. Evergreen topic, that one. Exactly
yeah,
right.
very cool. Well, thanks a lot, Christy, for joining us again. And we'll definitely have you back on once we get some more results from some of the things that you've been working on. And I guess I could tease people, if you're interested out there, we went through an exercise. I guess Christy actually went through this more specifically, where she went through and improved content on her site, and we saw pretty good results, I think, right off the bat. So we can cover that in depth. We can kind of cover some of the high points of what we went through. And I think we were chatting before, right? Like, we don't know how much the traffic went up, but it seems to be good, right?
Yep, exactly. I'd rather have steady traffic than peaks and valleys all over the place, right? I'm in it for the long haul. So if I can steadily earn a little bit more and steadily pick up the traffic a little bit more over a year, that makes me completely happy.
All right, cool. So if you're interested in hearing more in that area, to basically how to grow your traffic on your existing site, which I think everybody wants to do, shoot me an email, feedback@doug.show, and we'll see what we could pull together. So thanks, Christy. Appreciate it.
Cool. Thanks, Doug.